So hi, my name is Paul Dose. I'm an actual game developer myself, and I was at TCGCon Houston. I had the benefit of meeting with Team APS there, and Paul and Terrell came by my booth, and I showed them both a little bit of what I work on when it comes to Vanguard. Paul took a picture, and then this happened, which, you know, lots of community feedback there, and this happened on YouTube. So I figured I would at least make a small video to address what I did. So Paul also took a short video, and I'm not going to spoil what I said in the video. My hat's a little on straight, I apologize. But I wanted to at least show you guys kind of what I do. And I actually made an entire Vanguard card creator. There isn't a link to a website like some people are asking, like where you can generate your own Vanguard cards. I do them all myself. So the effects are, for a majority of them, 100% unique and completely different than anything that exists in Vanguard. And I was going to go through and show the like Yu-Gi deck and give a little bit of background on what I did. So when Vanguard first started, I actually had my friends. They went to start playing Vanguard from Yu-Gi-Oh, and so in an effort to bring them back to Yu-Gi-Oh, I made these as like a joke. So a lot of these effects are quite dated and very old. This was the starter, and I have tweaked it since to try to keep up with the current metagame, and I have made these overdress. But the original cards looked very bad, and now they look, really cool. So in general, you have the typical overdress text. For those of you that are not aware, Vanguard has like a whole format now where there's specific lines of text that have to be on certain cards. And as a game developer, I kind of took it as a challenge to kind of channel my inner, Yu-Gi-Oh and throw it into Vanguard. So this was the starting unit, which was Celtic Guardian. And I'm just going to page through. I'm not going to read every single effect, but I will explain a little bit about what you see. Now, to a Yu-Gi-Oh player, you're not going to be familiar with half of the symbology on these cards. Trust me, I wasn't. So I had to educate myself on how to type everything and put it all together, and I put it all together in my little thing. So some of the like wording is incorrect, and I've been told that by my friends that are judges in Vanguard. But Breaker was the follow-up. So essentially, you go from Celtic Guardian into Breaker the Magical Warrior. Breaker had a bunch of effects if things had happened. In hindsight, this card is not as good as it looks, but it is a good unit to put down after you've gone into your whole like combo. Dark Magician is the grade 2, which is essentially like turn 2 or turn 3 for your player. You get to go into Dark Magician. And I will also emphasize, you'll notice that a lot of this artwork is, the official artwork. I did scour fan sites. This artwork is not mine. The framework, the effects, the wording on the text, and all the gameplay aspects that I put into the Vanguard shell are my own design, but I cannot compete with artists. I am not an artist. I am just a person that creates cool ideas. So this was Dark Magician, and then the picture that Paul posted, which is Dark Magician of Chaos. Again, some of the wording is weird to Yu-Gi-Oh players, but to Vanguard players, some of them are saying this is an incredibly powerful effect. Others say it's meh. That's fine. It's not a big deal to me either way. I'm trying to keep this video rather short, but I'm going to go through the rest of the cards so that everybody can see. They're called triggers. So trigger units in Vanguard are like, I think it's 20? No, it's 16 specific units that exist in your deck. They have this little symbol at the top. If you draw them, whenever an action's going on, something cool happens. That's basically what this does. And this is my first take at like doing an effect while things are happening, which again, to Vanguard players, as I mentioned in some of the comments, does not it doesn't really work. Like, they don't like things happening at simultaneous actions. And Queen's Knight is a stand trigger. In the current format of Vanguard, this symbol does not exist. I actually had to make this symbol in an effort to be able to preserve the original effects that I had created about 7-8 years ago when I first conceptualized doing this with my friends. King's Knight, so we have the Jack's Queen, King's Queen. King's Knight is a draw trigger, and then we have the heal trigger, which is Mystical Elf. Who else could it be, right? Moving on, we have the over trigger. This is also a new mechanic that's introduced to Vanguard, and the over trigger can't be anything like less than BLS. So, BLS is the over trigger. Karibo, there is no better PG. So in Vanguard, you have mechanics called perfect guards. Essentially, what a perfect guard does is it stops anything from hitting your dude. So like Vanguard is all based on like effects and then attacks, and you fight and things happen. Um, Karibo stops any attack from hitting something. It's a general term called Sentinel in Vanguard, but this is the perfect guard in Vanguard, and I had to pay homage to our classic, Yu-Gi-Oh Abridged with Duke de la la la. Moving on, we have Defender the Magical Warrior. I know this was never played by Yugi, but at the time I wanted something else to kind of go with Breaker. We have Buster Blader, because Buster Blader is just awesome. We can't get past the original artwork from the 10th anniversary set for Yu-Gi-Oh! I love this artwork and I wanted it included. Buster Blader is one of my favorite cards ever. Curse of Dragon, another interesting little take on the artwork. I put a background on it, but someone drew this. This is not mine. Guy of the Fierce Knight, possibly my favorite card from original Yu-Gi-Oh! Like LOB. I loved this picture. I believe I was fortunate enough to pull him as an ultra rare in the original set, and like that kind of harkens to my history with Yu-Gi-Oh! I've played since it dropped, like it initially released. And Gaia is cool because in this whole like thing, it says if he would be retired, which is the equivalent of destroyed. If you have Curse of Dragon in the same row as him, then Curse of Dragon dies, and he doesn't. He just basically becomes Gaia the Dragon Champion, which I thought was kind of cool. Dark Magician Girl, had to put the Japanese artwork because Vanguard doesn't believe in censorship. Again, pays homage to the original effect, and then has a cool little Vanguarded effect to make things happen. And then the second grade 3, so in Vanguard, once you've hit a certain grade, you're permitted to go into higher grades, and grade 3 for Arcanonite Joker is just, it's if you pull off the whole combo, your opponent should just lose, and that's the objective with pretty much everything I designed in Yu-Gi Guard. If you do the gimmick for the deck, you should just win the game. Arcanonite Joker is a good example of this, and it's incredible. Had to make the my deck has no pathetic cards Kaiba, because originally this was a Kaiba versus Yugi situation. There was no other decks. Then this was my own little spin after Overdress came out. This is what I call an ultimate unit. This is before they had announced grade 4s for Overdress. So again, to reference, Overdress is the current like standard format of Vanguard. There's Premium, which is like an Eternal format, but Overdress is the current format. And in Overdress, they had not created grade 4s. So I made a ridiculous clause to summon the grade 4, and then a ridiculous effect that basically, again, if you manage to play Dark Paladin, you should win the game. Furthermore, with Overdress, they introduced order cards. Order cards are the equivalent of spell cards, but in Vanguard, you're limited to one a turn. So, would you like me to explain what it does? Pot of Greed. Everybody in Vanguard agrees this card is insane because you play it on turn 1 and you get +2 in card advantage, or +1 in card advantage, which is insane. And Spellbinding Circle is the equivalent of a trap in Vanguard. It's called a Blitz Order, meaning that you can activate it when the opponent attacks, and you do the action, and then things happen to respond to the opponent. It's one of the very few ways that you can interact with your opponent directly on their turn. Graceful Charity, because if you play Pot of Greed, you got to have Graceful Charity. Graceful Charity does have a cost, but it lets you draw 3 and do a mechanic to get rid of 2 cards out of your hand, essentially netting you a +1. But it's still or a break even. I'm not sure exactly, but point is, it's really, really cool. It's really broken. And then we have Magical Hats. This is once again a Blitz Order. It essentially lets you like switch your opponent's attack target to something else. And Monster Reborn, the classic, the best of all time. You know, Counterblast 1, you get to bring back something from the graveyard. Very powerful. And then Swords of Revealing Light is something they call set orders. Set orders are their equivalent of continuous spells or continuous traps or whatever. Swords of Revealing Light in this case essentially makes it where nothing but one of your opponent's units can attack, when typically your opponent gets 3 attacks in the turn. This card has a very hefty cost, but if you manage to do it, you're essentially preventing, you're like getting a whole bunch of blocks because your opponent can't do actions that their deck is set up to do. It's a very powerful lockdown tool. And Mirror Force is the only one that I've made so far that actually says you can only have 1 copy of it in the deck. This is because in Vanguard you're only allotted so many your opponent can't hit you actions in the form of those Sentinel cards, and this card also doubles as a Sentinel because it makes it where your opponent's attack can't hit and you get to retire things on top of it. So again, just a lot of fun. Like I built this as fun. It was intentional to be a kind of joke thing. I will release the other profiles that people are asking about, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this. So thanks for your time, and bye-bye.